I found your child on the balcony, so I brought her here.
In the middle of a freezing winter night, the doorbell rang. When I answered it, a police officer was standing there. I didn't understand what was happening. After all, my only daughter was sleeping beside me. The officer had him with a girl about 5 years old, her lips blue and shivering coldly. "She's not my child. I don't know this girl." I tried to explain, but the officer seemed doubtful, saying he would take her to the hospital. The girl's hair was overgrown and completely unkempt. Her dirty clothes had holes in them and they didn't look like they had been washed. She appeared the same age as my daughter but was very thin. Who is this child? Why was she on my balcony? Little did I know that the turmoil this girl would soon bring into our lives. My name is Janice. I'm a 32-year-old office worker. I lived on the first floor of an apartment that my parents bought for us, with my high school classmate husband and our 5-year-old daughter, Susie. My husband was also a company employee and often traveled for work. Being a good person, he would cover for his colleagues even on his days off, so he was often away. One day, while my husband was on a business trip, my daughter and I were home alone when the doorbell rang. In the middle of a freezing winter night, I wondered who it could be, and looking through the doorbell camera, I saw it was a police officer. I was baffled by this unexpected visitor, but when I opened the door, he said,
I found your child on the balcony, so I have brought her here.
I had no idea what he meant. Yes, my daughter is sleeping inside the house.
What?
The officer's eyes went wide, but I was the one who was really shocked. How had that girl gotten onto the balcony while I was asleep? I hadn't heard a thing. The officer had with him a girl about 5 years old, her lips blue and shivering uncontrollably. It had been so cold that it seemed like it might even snow, so it was no wonder. She's not my child. I don't know this girl. The officer seemed skeptical even after what I said, but he stated,
I'm taking her to the hospital now.
The girl looked so cold and pitiful that I brought a warm blanket from the back of the room and wrapped her in it. Her hands were like ice, so young, yet holding back tears and biting her lips without making a sound. Her hair was messy and her collar stained. Hole-ridden clothes showed no signs of having been washed. She looked incredibly thin and pale, as if she was malnourished. Who is this child? Why was she on my balcony? I couldn't help but wonder, and my heart ached thinking about a girl the same age as my daughter in such pain. I couldn't sleep much that night, worried about her. And morning came, that's when I got a call from my husband.
Anything unusual happened while I was on my business trip?
Well, yes, a strange girl was on our balcony. The police took her and they're taking her to the hospital. I was so surprised.
Why didn't you take care of her yourself?
What? But she's a stranger. What could I do?
You're a mother too. You should have taken care of that little girl instead of handing her over to the police. Isn't it sad?
I was baffled by my husband's sudden anger. Why did he know the girl was young? We hadn't even talked about that. I questioned him, but his answer was lacking in clarity.
No, actually, she's the daughter of an acquaintance of mine. Her mother's gone, and I felt sorry for her, so I brought her yesterday. I thought you would take care of her.
What? You weren't on a business trip? You need to explain the situation clearly. My husband apologized, but I couldn't believe that he had left such a small child on the balcony on such a cold day. Even if he had dressed her warmly, she could have easily frozen to death. So, what are you doing and where are you now? My husband said he was in the middle of searching for the girl's mother, but I felt like he was hiding something. Later on, after returning from his business trip, my husband gave some explanation, picked up the girl from the police, and shockingly left her with me. Did you find her mother? What about her father?
No, I haven't found them yet. The father, I don't know.
So, who's the acquaintance you mentioned?
Well, that's just a casual acquaintance. Let's leave it at that. I'm going on another business trip soon.
Wait a minute, what about this girl? My husband ignored my plea to stay and left, leaving the girl behind. I felt something was off about my husband's behavior, so I searched through his belongings and found something in the inner pocket of his suit. Shocked by the content, I quickly called my husband, but I couldn't get through to him. Suddenly, I noticed my daughter Susie and the little girl looking up at me anxiously. What's your name? Ashley? Ashley nervously answered in a small voice, told me she was the same age as my daughter, 5 years old. When I smiled gently at her, she looked at me with surprise, then laughed cheerfully, clutching her rumbling stomach. You must be hungry, right? Yes. I made Hawaiian plate lunches for my daughter and Ashley. They stared at the food in curiosity and then began to devour it. They ate so fast that their faces were covered in sauce. As I reached out to wipe her face with a tissue, Ashley quickly brought both hands to her head, covering it as if protecting herself. The motion gave me an uneasy feeling. It's all right, I'm just going to wipe your mouth, I said gently. With a relieved expression, Ashley turned her face towards me, and after I wiped up the sauce, she began to eat her Hawaiian plate again. After finishing her meal and wearing a completely satisfied expression, it was time to do something about Ashley's dirty body. As I started to undress her for a quick shower, I involuntarily gasped at the sight of her body. What is this? There were countless bruises as if she had been beaten and pinched. Trying not to show my agitation, I led her cheerfully to the bathroom. As I tried to wash her body, Ashley said, "It's okay, I can do it myself," and started to wash her body with cold water. Wait a minute, what are you doing? I accidentally snapped. She looked up at me with a puzzled face and said, Ashley always does it like this. What? Washing your body with water? I asked. She nodded at my question, and as she tried to pour cold water over herself, I hurriedly stopped her and washed her whole body cleanly with soap. Afterwards, I poured warm water over her and she murmured, "It's warm," with a contented look. It turned out that she rarely got to shower at home, and when she did, her mother would tell her to wash with water. The fact that she accepted this as normal without questioning, it made my heart ache. After the bath, I dressed her in my daughter Susie's clothes and neatly arranged her hair. Ashley looked completely transformed. My daughter and Ashley looked just like sisters when they stand together. I looked at my daughter and Ashley, whose faces seemed to remind me of each other, with a warm smile. Ashley was an obedient and gentle child, and I could tell she was longing for affection. She would come by my side as I cooked, tug at the edge of my skirt and laugh. And when it was time to sleep, she would hold my hand and never let it go. Susie also grew fond of Ashley, and the two became close like real sisters. A week went by and I still couldn't get in touch with my husband. Ashley's mother said she knew my husband, but I couldn't keep caring for a little child on just that information. I gave up on contacting my husband, consulted the police, and Ashley had to be sent to a facility. Tears rolled down her big eyes and my heart ached watching her look back at me again and again as the people from the facility took her away. Time continued to pass without any news from my husband until I finally made a decision. 9 years later, I was living with my parents, my daughter Susie, and Ashley in our family home. I had actually adopted Ashley after she was taken to the facility. My parents in our family home treated her like their real grandchild, saying, "She came to us for a reason," and showered her with love. The two girls grew up as sisters and blossomed into beautiful young women. Susie and Ashley's dream of becoming models came true, and lately, they are being featured as beautiful junior models in magazines. Stepping into the glamorous world, the two were thriving and wore vibrant expressions on their faces. One day, the doorbell rang at our family home, and when I opened the door, there stood my ex-husband Philip, looking poor, down and out. A stranger who introduced herself as Joanna was with him. Not wanting to argue in front of the neighbors, I led them inside. Then, sitting on the living room sofa, the two abruptly began to speak.
In truth, Ashley is my child."
Philip, who hadn't contacted me in 9 years, said this without even apologizing. I was so stunned that I let out a big sigh. "She looks just like you. I thought it might be you, so is that woman over there your partner?" In response to my question, Philip nodded and began to tell the story of how he met the woman. Joanna had been working part-time at a bar Philip frequently visited. Even knowing that he was married with children, they got along and she became pregnant with Philip's child, giving birth to Ashley. However, Philip lacked decisiveness and didn't divorce me right away. Joanna grew tired of childcare and abandoned her role as a mother. In desperation, Philip thought of having me raise the child. It was an overly naive story, but what surprised me was not just that.
Please, give Ashley back to us.
My ex-husband suddenly stood up from the sofa and made an outrageous request, almost in tears, along with a deep apology. What? I happened to see a magazine and was surprised. She's grown up so well. Isn't she popular?
So what? It has nothing to do with you two.
But I am Ashley's real mother. You are just a fake after all.
How dare you say such a thing without contacting me all this time?
Then, Philip, who had been on his knees on the floor, grabbed my leg with a pathetic look on his face.
We don't have any money and are in trouble. Ashley's our only hope. Give her back.
How awful. You plan to make her work and live off her? No way.
What? You're using Ashley to make money, aren't you? That's not fair.
Stop making false accusations. I'm saving the children's money on their banking cards. Ashley is my child too. I will never hand her over. Then, Joanna suddenly rises from the sofa, launching at me with an air of recklessness that sends shivers down my spine.
What are you doing to my mom? Stop it.
In the scene bursts Ashley, my daughter. She spreads her arms wide, blocking my path, and glares at Joanna. Ashley, you've grown so beautiful. Remember me? I'm your mom. Let's go home together.
You're not my mother. Get out of this house now.
Ashley broke down in tears, clinging to me. Although Ashley was very young at the time, it seems a faint memory of the terrible treatment she endured remains. Ashley, dear, that's just a misunderstanding on your part. See, you were so young back then. In response to her flimsy excuses, I produced a note and photograph that I had found in Philip's suit back then. The note read, I don't want to raise a child. I can't find Ashley cute. Get rid of her somewhere. If you won't marry me, let's run away together. And the photograph showed a young Ashley covered in bruises. I also had the hospital medical report, of course. Do you still claim to be her parents after seeing this? That's...
You wanted to dump a child you didn't want to raise on me, didn't you? You made this precious child suffer such horrors.
That was all Philip's doing. I didn't know anything about it. I was too young to raise a child. It was inevitable. But anyway, I'll take Ashley back now. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. I have legally adopted Ashley, so I am her parent. Oh, what? That has to be a lie. The mention of the law quickly deflated Joanna's momentum. However, Philip seemed to not have given up yet.
So, if that's the case, I'll break up with Joanna and let's start over. Susie and Ashley are my children. We'll just go back to being husband and wife, so there won't be any problem, will there?
What? What are you saying? You just want things to go your way, like I will let that happen?
Listening to their exchange, I was dumbfounded, then angry. I don't want to have anything to do with these people, not even for a moment. I have more bad news for you, Philip. You and I are no longer married. What? 3 years after you went missing, I filed a lawsuit and was granted a divorce. Hey, what are you doing on your own? Just as Philip was about to grab me, the sound of a police car approached. My parents had called the police after seeing Joanna's aggressive behavior. Well, the police are here now, so please don't come to our house again. No way, please forgive me. I'll give up on Ashley, but at least lend me some money. Philip put on a disgraceful show to the very end. Afterwards, he and Joanna were dragged away by the police. I plan to make sure Philip pays the alimony and child support in full. The two of them, cut off even from friends and family, will likely continue to struggle. Though there's been much turmoil, the little girl who once trembled in fear has grown splendidly. I will live happily with my parents and 2 loving daughters, looking forward to the future they speak of so full of dreams.
My name is Jaylani. I live with my husband, Theodore, Together, we run a set meal restaurant. This restaurant, named Sunflower, is a place that my grandfather had lovingly maintained for years. It has many regulars from the local area and has been loved for a long time. However, my grandfather, who had always been energetic as the owner, was also battling cancer. I can't just sit around in a hospital room. I'll work at Sunflower until the end. Even as his condition worsened, my grandfather never complained. He kept serving delicious food with a smile on his face, chatting with regular customers. Today, surrounded by his family, he breathed his last breath. My grandfather named me, his granddaughter, his successor for the restaurant. Maybe he had realized his time was near. He left a detailed will, including instructions about the inheritance of the shop. Accepting my grandfather's will, I decided to become the owner of Sunflower. Thankfully, even after my grandfather passed away, the customers didn't stop coming. The employees who had been working for us continued to serve faithfully. Having watched my grandfather's cooking all my life, I was confident that I could continue to serve dishes that tasted just like before. Perhaps it was because I was cooking with all my heart to keep the restaurant going, but the regular customers who were used to my grandfather's cooking gave positive feedback. "This taste! It's just like your granddad's. It feels like he's still here even though he's gone." The regulars were delighted that they could continue to enjoy my grandfather's flavors. Sunflower has been thriving just like when my grandfather was around, and I'm more motivated than ever. However, since my grandfather passed away, my husband has started to show dissatisfaction. "Normally, a man would be the owner of a restaurant. I don't get why you inherited it." "I'm his granddaughter. That's why. The restaurant is in my name, but we're running it together, so it doesn't really matter, does it?" "Well, I guess." My husband seemed to have wanted to be the owner and sometimes vented his frustrations, but I'm the one who mainly cooks. Since my grandfather's time, my husband has mainly been handling the cash register, deliveries, and shopping. An owner who can't cook doesn't quite fit the bill. I could have given in a little and not been so stubborn, but my grandfather had nominated me. Once nominated, I didn't want to disregard my grandfather's wishes. "Jaylani, can I have another one of these?" "Sure, got it." The restaurant is still bustling, and I'm busy every day. Then, one day, someone paid a visit. "Hey, big bro, long time no see." It was my husband's younger brother. This brother-in-law of mine was quite a troublesome character. Despite his age, he didn't hold a steady job and was always flitting about, playing around. To be honest, I found him difficult to handle. Last year, he moved far away, saying he was going to find work, but it seems he quit that job and came back.
Oh, welcome back.
Despite this, my husband cherished his younger brother. My husband seemed glad that his brother had returned to our hometown.
"I heard the old man passed away. You took over the shop, right, bro?"
"No, not me."
"No way! Your wife? Seriously? A woman running a shop? That's hilarious."
Unaware of the annoyed looks from the customers, my brother-in-law roared with laughter. I felt silly engaging with my brother-in-law and decided to ignore him.
"Since we're family, it's free, right?"
"Yeah, sure." My brother-in-law ate a large meal, drank beer, and left without paying. That's how unreasonable he is. "Our relatives come here too, but they always pay. It's unfair to make only your brother free, so please charge him next time."
"It's fine. He doesn't have money. It's okay to give him a break."
My husband seemed to be siding with his brother to the end. After that, my brother-in-law regularly visited the restaurant and ate and drank without paying. Each time, I warned my husband, but he would not listen. Perhaps because I was being persistent, my husband became grumpy and talked less. As our relationship worsened, my brother-in-law started coming to the restaurant more frequently. And each time he would whisper with my husband in the back of the kitchen. I'm sure they were bad-mouthing me. I tried not to mind their behavior and kept cooking. While glancing at me working hard, my brother-in-law had this conversation with my husband.
"Can't we somehow make this restaurant yours, bro?"
"The name is in my wife's name, so..."
"The location is good. There are many customers. Let's make it your restaurant and monopolize the profit. It must be hard being under your wife's thumb like this."
"Well, yeah, but..." My brother-in-law had set his sights on Sunflower and was scheming to make it their own. Taking advantage of our marital strife, he was trying to get my frustrated husband on board.
"But how are we going to make it our restaurant?"
"I have a good idea." The two began to quietly plot. My husband agreed with his brother's opinion, and they decided to put their plan into action. The next day was the restaurant's day off. My husband left early, leaving me alone. Even though it was my day off, I remembered that the kitchen was dirty. I decided to visit the restaurant and spend the whole day cleaning. When I tried to open the door of the shop, it was unlocked. Thinking I'd forgotten to lock it yesterday, I rushed in, and there were my husband and brother-in-law. "Oh, you're here!" I was surprised because the door was unlocked. "It's our day off today. What are you doing?" As I called out, the two of them smirked as if they were up to something. "Actually, we have something to talk to you about. Since you took over this restaurant, you've been getting too big for your boots and it's bothering us." "I'm not getting big-headed." "No, you are. Don't you think so?" "I do. You're happy because the restaurant's thriving and profitable." "What are you trying to say?" The two of them spoke as if they were making fun of me, which frustrated me. As I showed my angry expression, my husband started to spread out some documents on the table. "I'm sick of your attitude. Let's get a divorce." The document was a filled-out divorce application. Surprised by the sudden announcement, I was stunned. "Huh? What? What do you mean?" I was shaken, unable to understand what my husband was thinking. The first thing that crossed my mind was about the continuation of the restaurant. There are a few employees, but running the restaurant alone after the divorce would surely be hard. "This is too sudden. I don't understand what you're saying. It would be hard for me to keep running the restaurant alone if we divorce." About that, we're going to buy this restaurant. We're going to start it anew as our own, so we want you to leave. I couldn't understand what my husband was saying at all. "It's such a waste to continue running a dull diner in such a good location with so many customers. We're going to make this restaurant better." "That's why? Please sign the divorce papers and leave quickly." The two of them were saying such absurd things that I couldn't keep up. "This is a restaurant that my grandfather protected. The profits are already enough. We should continue as we have been for the sake of the customers." "So you're saying you have no intention to grow? In a little while, a restaurant like this will go out of business. To prevent that, I'm saying I'll start a new restaurant." No matter what I said, I couldn't get through to them. Surely my husband must have been brainwashed by his brother. "Well then, we'll buy this restaurant for whatever price you want. We'll be able to earn it back quickly, so any price is fine." I couldn't stand the bullying attitudes of the two of them. "All right. If that's the case, I'll sell it for $50,000. Please wait for 2 weeks while I prepare the divorce papers and the contract. And during those 2 weeks, neither of you should come to the shop." Once I said I was selling the shop, the two of them were in high spirits. There was a reason I was giving up the shop so easily. They were selfishly talking without knowing about it. In the meantime, I managed to run the shop alone. "Huh? Where's your husband?" "Well, we're actually getting a divorce." "What? So suddenly? So, will you be running Sunflower alone then?" "No, my husband is buying the shop. I'll be leaving in 2 weeks." The customers were surprised and looked genuinely disappointed. "But there's some good news, too." I quickly distributed flyers that I had made to the customers. When they saw it, their expressions immediately relaxed. And 2 weeks later, I presented the contract to sell the shop and the divorce papers. "There are no complaints with this, right?" My husband promptly signed the contract. $50,000. I'll transfer it to your account right now. So this is my shop from now on. My husband and brother-in-law were ecstatic. With them out of the corner of my eye, I packed up my belongings and left the shop. On my way to file the divorce papers, I was excited to see what the two of them were going to do next. My ex-husband and brother-in-law immediately started running the shop. "We've explained the situation to the employees, and even without Jaylani, the shop should run fine." "All right, let's make some money!" With that, the two of them began to prepare for the day with enthusiasm. At 10 o'clock, when the shop usually opens, a different scene unfolded. "Why aren't the customers coming?" There were no customers who usually came as soon as the shop opened. The employees who had always been diligent about coming to work weren't at the shop either. My ex-husband tried calling the employees, but no one was answering. They had never experienced anything like this before, and the two of them began to panic. Rushing out of the shop, my ex-husband noticed a regular customer walking by. "Hey, you're our customer, right?" "Huh? Oh, yeah." "I've been worried because you haven't come in yet. Come on in." Didn't you say the wife quit the shop? I was coming here for her cooking, so maybe I won't come anymore." "Don't say that. We'll definitely serve something delicious." My ex-husband somewhat forcefully guided the customer into the shop. The customer reluctantly entered the shop and started to look at the menu to place an order. "What's with this menu?" "Since I'm the shop owner now, I've decided to drastically change the menu." The traditional sunflower set meals were nowhere to be found on the menu. The menu was filled with foreign words, and it seemed difficult for the customer to understand, causing a drop in enthusiasm even before ordering. "Then I'll have this steak." "Understood." My ex-husband and brother-in-law enthusiastically started cooking. The customer, who had never seen my ex-husband cook, anxiously awaited the meal. "Hey, is it ready yet?" "Sorry for the wait." Finally, 40 minutes after the order was placed, the meal was ready. When the steak was brought to the table, the customer's eyes widened in surprise. "What is this?" What my ex-husband served could hardly be called a meal. There were only 3 pieces of meat in the center of the plate. The outside was burnt, and the inside was raw. There was no sauce or anything else, just a bowl of bread and soup. "We used high-quality ingredients, so we only used salt and pepper for seasoning. We cooked it to bring out the aroma of the outside and enjoy the rare inside." The customer didn't touch the steak, which looked like a failed dish at first glance. Upon closer inspection, the soup appeared to be instant. "I'm sorry, but I can't eat this." The disgruntled customer stood up, ready to leave the shop. My ex-husband was shocked that not a single bite was taken. "Customer, you still have to pay. That will be $30. $30? You're joking. I can't pay for this garbage-like meal." The furious customer stormed out of the shop. Taken aback by the unexpected turn of events, my ex-husband and his brother were stunned. At the same time, they realized they were in a dire situation. Neither my ex-husband, who had barely ever cooked, nor my freeloader brother-in-law could possibly run a restaurant. They should have realized this if they thought about it, but they were too focused on making money. From that point on, not a single customer visited the Sunflower under their management. Meanwhile, I had started a new shop in a different location. It's Sunflower 2. The employees who had worked at the original Sunflower are also with me. This shop was also inherited from my grandfather. My grandfather had been concerned about the aging Sunflower and its durability, so he had built a new shop in a different location. He wanted to announce the new shop once it was finished, but he passed away before the shop was completed. This shop was entrusted to me. I had not disclosed the existence of this new shop to my ex-husband. During the 2 weeks I handed over Sunflower, I advertised the new shop. Regular customers who wanted to eat my food all followed me. Thanks to that, the shop has been bustling since its opening day. We have enough margin to hire a few part-time workers. Since I have the $50,000 I received from my ex-husband, I can also add to the employees' salaries. Here, I began to offer my original dishes. To broaden our customer base, I came up with menus for younger people and even weaning food that small children could eat. This has attracted a lot of attention, and the number of families visiting has increased. While keeping my grandfather's flavors, I'm growing the shop to fit the times. The daily hustle gives me a sense of fulfillment. Meanwhile, my ex-husband and his brother were at a loss in the old Sunflower. They had borrowed a large amount of money to pay me $50,000, and now they are receiving demand letters. What are we going to do about this? You're the one who suggested this, right? Figure it out! The brother-in-law, whose predictions had gone awry, was holding his head in his hands. Then he had an idea. I've got a great plan. Hatching a scheme, the two of them suddenly showed up at my bustling restaurant during the busy lunch hour. Jaylani, please help us! Despite the restaurant being packed with customers, the brother-in-law was shouting loudly, "My brother hurt his arm and can't cook anymore. We'll give the old restaurant back. Could you return the money as well?" You guys took over the old restaurant, remember? You signed the contract. You need to take responsibility and make it work. I brushed off the brother-in-law's plea and was about to return to my work when my ex-husband appeared from behind him, looking pained. "Jaylani, help me." Thinking he was being overly dramatic, I was about to turn back to the kitchen when the restaurant became noisy. "Whoa! What's that?" "That looks painful. Is he okay?" When I looked towards my ex-husband, seeing the customer stirring, I was taken aback. His fist was covered in a large bruise. "Are you really injured?" "That's what I've been saying." "Then go to the hospital right now." I quickly called a taxi and sent my ex-husband to the hospital. During my lunch break, I went to the hospital to check on him. When I arrived, he was just coming out, apparently finished with his examination. As I tried to ask what had happened, the two of them avoided my gaze and hurriedly ran off. Feeling suspicious about their behavior, I decided to inquire at the hospital reception. "I believe a man named Theodore was seen here earlier. Has his examination finished? I came to pick him up." "Please wait a moment." I had them check on the status of his examination using his name. However, the receptionist was looking puzzled. "There's no record of such a consultation. Perhaps he went to a different hospital?" My ex-husband hadn't received an examination. Remembering the sight of the two running away, I felt they were hiding something. I quickly set off to pursue them. A few minutes of driving later, I spotted my ex-husband and brother-in-law walking. I immediately stopped the car, grabbed my ex-husband's arm, and called out to him. "I knew it!" Looking at the fist of the arm I grabbed, the bruise was completely gone. My ex-husband and brother-in-law tried to run, but I mustered all my strength to stop them. Seeing my furious expression, they quickly calmed down. "Why is the bruise gone? You weren't injured after all." "Well, running a restaurant's hard. The old Sunflower hardly gets any customers, so we can't make money and can't pay back the debt. That's why I pretended I was injured and couldn't continue the restaurant to try to get the money back." "I'm appalled. You were trying to deceive me with such a childish lie." I let go of the two. "Don't involve me in your affairs from now on. You two figure out what to do with that restaurant." I got back in my car and returned to my restaurant. Through the mirror, I could see the two hanging their heads in shame, which made me feel pathetic. Afterwards, the two quickly put Sunflower up for sale. I think they made that decision to repay their debt, but due to the building's age, they struggled to find a buyer. They received a flood of debt collection letters and were working around the clock. This life suits them, having thrown away something precious due to their greed. As for me, my newly renovated restaurant is thriving even more than before, with sales doubling. One of my regular customers offered to apprentice with me, so now I have a disciple. I often remind him that running a restaurant is not as easy as my ex-husband thought. I want to continue to carry on my grandfather's restaurant for the foreseeable future.